The sale no one saw coming. Queen Camilla just made one of the most shocking personal decisions of her royal life. And it happened almost overnight. Ray Mill House, her deeply private countryside sanctuary in Wiltshire, reportedly sold in just 48 hours. No long marketing campaign, no public announcement, no emotional farewell interview. Just a quiet listing, and then it was gone. And the timing has sent royal watchers into overdrive. Because this happened just after what insiders are calling Princess Anne's secret verdict, a behind-the-scenes decision that may have permanently changed Camilla's position inside the monarchy. This is not another tabloid spat. It is a story about power, legacy, loyalty, and a royal score that may have been quietly settling for decades. Why Ray Mill House matters so much. To understand why this sale matters, you need to understand what Ray Mill House represented. Camilla bought the property long before she married King Charles. It was not a palace residence handed to her by the crown. It was hers, personally, privately, emotionally. Friends described it as the one place where she could escape the machinery of royal life. The gardens became famous for being her therapy, her refuge, her safe space away from public scrutiny. So when someone sells a home like that in just 2 days, people notice. Because people do not usually abandon their emotional anchor unless something has changed dramatically behind closed doors. The 48-hour mystery, according to reports, the property appeared on the market quietly before Christmas 2024. Then, within 48 hours, it was sold, not reduced, not publicly negotiated, sold. That speed is what startled insiders. Luxury country estates in Wiltshire do not typically vanish overnight unless the seller is highly motivated. And that has triggered the biggest question of all. Why did Camilla suddenly want it gone? The palace shift that changed everything. Sources say the answer may lie in a quiet but powerful realignment inside the royal family, one centered around Princess Anne and Prince William. For years, Camilla's position inside the monarchy seemed secure. She married Charles in 2005, became queen consort in 2023, and appeared to have completed a remarkable public rehabilitation after decades of controversy. But insiders say the atmosphere shifted after the coronation. Princess Anne, famously disciplined, unsentimental, and fiercely protective of the institution, reportedly began revisiting archival records from the 1980s and 1990s. Not public gossip. Internal documents, correspondence, and household records connected to the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage. People close to the palace describe this process as the Windsor reset. And if that phrase sounds ominous, that is because it is. Anne's long memory, Princess Anne, is not known for dramatic public statements. She rarely gives emotional interviews. She does not wage media wars. But she has something more powerful: institutional memory. She watched the Camilla Gate tapes explode in 1993. She watched Charles admit adultery in 1994. She watched Diana's Panorama interview in 1995. She watched the divorce. She watched Diana die in 1997. And there is another layer most casual royal coverage ignores. Before Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles, Anne herself was reportedly romantically involved with him in the early 1970s. The British press documented the relationship at the time. That means Anne's perspective on Camilla was never purely political. It was also deeply personal. Insiders say Anne views Camilla through a very specific lens. Someone willing to enter spaces that belong to someone else first. Whether that assessment is fair or not, it matters because Anne is one of the few royals with both personal history and institutional authority. William's quiet countermove, while Anne reportedly focused on history and legacy, Prince William was handling something else entirely: power. When Queen Elizabeth died, William inherited control of the Duchy of Cornwall, a vast estate empire generating tens of millions of pounds annually. And insiders noticed something interesting almost immediately. Camilla's sister, Annabel Elliot, who had worked across duchy properties for years, reportedly disappeared from the duchy's financial records after William took control. No public drama, no official statement, just gone. Then came the patronage reshuffling. Several high-profile royal roles that observers expected Camilla to receive reportedly went elsewhere. Again, no announcement, no confrontation, no scandalous headline, just a pattern. And in royal politics, patterns matter more than speeches. The friendship problem, another complication, reportedly involved Sarah Ferguson. After renewed scrutiny surrounding Jeffrey Epstein-related documents, palace insiders say William wanted clear distance between the institution and figures connected to that controversy. Camilla, however, is said to have remained loyal to Ferguson, a friend from long before her royal life. That created tension. Whether specific ultimatums were issued is impossible to confirm, but multiple reports suggest the disagreement deepened the divide between William's camp and Camilla's circle. Why selling the house matters politically. This is where the Ray Mill sale becomes more than a real estate story. Camilla reportedly viewed Ray Mill House as her fallback, the one property that would always remain hers regardless of palace politics. Selling it suggests she may no longer see her future the same way. Right now, she moves through Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, Sandringham, and Balmoral as queen consort. But when Charles dies, the landscape changes dramatically. Several major royal residences pass to William. Camilla's long-term position becomes far less secure and far more dependent on arrangements controlled by the next king. In other words, the sales may signal that she has accepted a future with less institutional protection than she once expected. Charles caught in the middle. The saddest part of this story may be King Charles himself. Sources say he understands exactly what is happening. He sees the tension between his wife, his sister, and his son. But he is also 76 years old, recovering from cancer treatment, and trying to preserve stability in the monarchy. Insiders claim he spoke with Anne in a lengthy private call that resolved nothing, and that may be the key point. Charles appears unable or unwilling to force a settlement. Without his active intervention, Camilla faces a difficult reality. There is no obvious counterweight to the combined influence of William and Anne. The human side of the story, for all the palace intrigue, this story is also deeply personal. Prince William was 15 when he walked behind his mother's coffin in 1997. He grew up watching his parents' marriage collapse publicly while Camilla's name dominated headlines. People close to him have long described him as patient, controlled, and strategic, not impulsive. That matters, because the moves attributed to him over the past few years fit that description almost perfectly. Gradual, deniable, institutionally clean, and emotionally restrained. No public attack on Camilla. No dramatic interview. Just a series of decisions that steadily reduce her influence. Did Camilla actually lose? Here is the paradox at the center of all this. By conventional standards, Camilla won. She married Charles. She became queen consort. She stood in Westminster Abbey, wearing Queen Elizabeth's favored tiara during the coronation. That is an extraordinary ascent. But insiders increasingly describe the current struggle as being about something different, Diana's legacy. And that is a contest with unusual emotional dynamics. William controls immense financial and institutional power. Anne reportedly controls access to historical records and internal memory. And Diana's public image remains uniquely powerful even decades after her death. In that environment, Camilla's victory may not feel complete anymore. What happens next? No one outside the palace knows exactly what will happen next, but several possibilities are now being openly discussed by royal observers. Camilla's public role may continue shrinking gradually rather than dramatically. That would fit the pattern already visible over the past 3 years. William may keep consolidating influence quietly instead of through open confrontation. So far, that strategy has worked remarkably well for him. Princess Anne's archival work could shape how future historians interpret the Diana-Camilla era, and that may ultimately matter more than today's headlines. Camilla may increasingly prioritize personal security and financial independence over palace symbolism. The Ray Mill House sale points strongly in that direction. What makes this story so compelling is that almost none of it is happening in public. There are no screaming palace press conferences, no televised accusations, no dramatic walkouts. Instead, the conflict appears to be unfolding through staffing choices, invitations, patronages, property decisions, and the slow movement of institutional power. That is how monarchies often operate when they are trying to avoid visible rupture. Quietly, patiently, permanently. Camilla's decision to sell Ray Mill House in just 48 hours may end up being remembered as more than a property transaction. It may have been the clearest public sign yet that the balance of power inside the royal family has shifted. Princess Anne's quiet determination, Prince William's methodical restructuring, and King Charles's inability to fully shield his wife appear to be converging into one unmistakable message. The monarchy's next chapter is already being written, and Camilla may no longer be at the center of it. Whether this becomes a temporary period of tension or a permanent reordering of royal influence remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: a house that once symbolized Camilla's independence and stability is gone. And in royal history, symbols are rarely accidental.